Hey guys, I'm B. For this movie, I will start with the non-spoilers part, just in case someone who hasn't watched the movie want to know what I think about it. And then I will go into the spoilers review, especially about how Chinese culture is represented in this animated movie. You can find the timestamps in the description. I guess the big question is, do I like this movie? I mean, yes, I do, but it's not that kind of movie that I will go back and watch again and again, like maybe Spider-Verse or Tangled. However, I certainly enjoy the experience of watching it. In my personal rating system, I will probably rate it around the same area as Frozen 2. I enjoy it, I like the song, I will listen to the songs again, but it's kinda unlikely that I will just watch it again and again. I think my biggest issue is probably with the story. I would say it has a great beginning and ending, but the middle is kind of messy. There are certain points I feel like the motivation is kind of lacking, and sometimes the plot is just a little bit too convenient for the plot to progress. And there are parts I feel like it's a little bit too childish for my liking. But well, it's an animated film, so that's probably okay. Still, I would say almost everything come together at the end, and there are hints here and there that really contributed to the main plot that I didn't expect to, so I like that a lot. I will probably go more into that in the spoilers review. The animation overall is really amazing, like definitely Pixar Disney kind of level. Honestly, the visual effect is probably my favorite part about this movie. There are several artistic decisions that I'm not quite sure about. I will talk about it later. But for what they had to make, they did an amazing job animating it. There are also a couple 2D animation in this movie, like the Chang'e story at the beginning, also some hidden parts in the background here and there. I like those a lot too. The songs and voice acting are pretty amazing as well. For the songs themselves, I really do enjoy every one of them, even when they appear in a scene that I didn't enjoy much. They are not like Let It Go kind of song that was stuck in your head for like days and days, but they're like comfortable hearing, and it makes you want to hear it again after watching the film. The voice acting are quite amazing as well. The voice of Fei Fei, Cassie An, has such a great singing voice. I fell in love like right away. And also she was very expressive with her voice, and even with her singing voice, I can feel all the emotion she wants to express. Philippa Soo is of course amazing as Chang'e. Her songs are quite challenging to sing, I imagine. They are like not the easy songs, but she handled them so well. If there's one thing to complain about the voice acting, it might be some of the pronunciation is not quite on point. It's not bad, certainly not bad. Actually, really good, like for some of the words. Honestly, I have no idea if the cast can actually speak Chinese or not, but from some of the pronunciation, I don't think they are a fluent speaker, but they definitely made an effort to speak those words. Philippa Soo has 2 lines in one song that are in Chinese, and I was very impressed, honestly, very impressed. So the one little detail that kind of took me out of place is the pronunciation of Chang'e. In the movie, sometimes they tend to emphasize on the Chang and make the sounds a lot weaker, but actually they should be pronounced with equal force. But once again, I have to say, it's not a big deal. Don't make this stop you if you really want to watch this movie. It's almost not noticeable. From this point on, this review will have a heavy amount of spoilers, so only continue if you have watched the movie. I know the following content is mostly gonna be criticism. Believe me, I really do like this movie. If there's something I don't mention, you can assume that I like it. So, let's talk about the story itself. As I said before, I like the beginning and the ending, but just not the middle part. I find it too messy and too separated. Separated as in not a strong connection with the whole plot and like the beginning and ending parts. And that is caused by several reasons. One is the sudden change of the art style. Another one is the story itself. Over the Moon actually reminds me a lot of Coco, but I find it emotionally not as deep. If I compare Over the Moon to Coco and Inside Out, they are all about the main character having an issue and go on a journey to a different world. However, for this movie, I found the two worlds too separated, and the moon world didn't connect itself to the real world, the Earth, thus making that part of the story a little hard to relate. Whereas in Coco, the dead world is still very much connected to the real world. Not just the story, the character, also the style, the background, the setting, everything. The beginning of Over the Moon has a great representation of the Chinese culture in almost every detail. But the moment they arrive at the moon, they seem to abandon every part of that. You see, before I watched this movie, I was kind of scared that my culture is not gonna be portrayed accurately. But it turned out the parts with the culture is actually my favorite parts. I just don't get why they decided to design the moon palace that way. The lights and the tiny mooncakes, I mean they are pretty to look at, but I just don't feel connected to them. The castle looks way more like a Disney castle than what I would imagine in a Chinese legend. I think I would like it a lot more if they include more Chinese elements in that part of the story as well. And not just the design, the songs as well. I love Rocket to the Moon and Yours Forever, but for the same reason as the design, I find Ultra Luminary and Hey Boy, while they are good to listen to, the scenes goes a little bit too long and I keep wanting to check my phone. So I did some research on why they decided to do it this way, and according to the director Glenn King, the city of Lunaria is inspired by Pink Floyd's Dark Side to the Moon album cover, and also Juan Milo's painting. It was designed to be the contrast of Feifei's hometown on Earth, but while it is visually stunning, I am not quite sure about the decision, because essentially this is a story based on the Chinese legend, and personally I would hope the Chinese elements can go through and through. On the other hand, if we don't talk about the culture elements, the design of the city of Lunaria is one of the most beautiful designs I've ever seen, with all the lights and colors, and they don't feel overwhelmed. So yeah, I enjoy that quite a lot. Another cause of the separation is that the plot is sometimes too convenient, and sometimes the motivation just doesn't convince me. Like, the reason Feifei wanna go to the moon is to take a picture of Chang'e to prove that she's real. And because she is real and she is still thinking about her love, that means her dad can't get remarried. Like, the reasoning here is a little bit weak, honestly. Like, maybe you can explain it by saying it's the logic of a 12-year-old, but that's still kind of stretching it. And science seemed to play a big part at first, like how Feifei's dad want to talk about the actual science about the moon, and Feifei being a genius, understanding all the physics, and later on build a spaceship, etc, etc. But that part of the plot kinda just died after the moon part begins. It's like everyone just forgot about it. Like Feifei being good at science is only convenient when she wants to go to the moon, and when that goal is reached, we just don't talk about it anymore. I was hoping to see her using science to solve some of the challenges she will face in the future, but that just never happened. And I still find the ping pong song kind of childish and useless to the plot. Also the Angry Birds. I just don't know why they exist. Oh, guess what? Sony Imageworks, who did the animation for this movie, also animated the Angry Birds movie. Well, that's probably the reason why. Jokes aside, I think they did a fantastic job. All the visual effects are surely stunning in this movie, from the little village on Earth to the city of Lunaria. Well, that's enough for the parts I don't like. Let's talk about what I like about this movie. Yes, it is a cultural representation in this film, especially the parts in Feifei's hometown. Let me give you guys some background information. This film is set in the Jiangnan area of China, which is vaguely here. It can be literally translated to south to the Yangtze River. And guess what? I am from that area, which makes this film a lot more meaningful for me. The Jiangnan area is known for its traditional architecture like this, and usually the houses are by the river. So, do Chinese people today still live in houses like this? No, not really. Most people live in this kind of modernized tall buildings, and the really rich ones can afford a house or two. However, this movie made a really clever choice to make Feifei's home location reasonable. By now, most of the towns with this kind of architecture is long gone, replaced by modernized cities. Sometimes the city will have one street or two that was still in this style, but not a lot. Because of this, the government preserved the remaining towns and transferred them into tourist towns. They rebuilt some of the buildings, painted some walls, make it look cleaner and more accessible to the tourists. So no, people don't really live here. The only people who live in places like this are those who own a business here, like a shop or a hotel, or like Feifei's family, who sells mooncakes for a living. This is a perfect example to include some obvious Chinese elements in the setting to make the audience know, oh, it's China immediately, but also makes sense for the Chinese audience who know about the background. The town appeared in the movie is modeled after a famous tourist town, Wuzhen. I have actually visited it when I was younger. And this is a picture I actually took over there back in 2008. As you can see, the movie did a great job capturing this traditional town. Although I have to say, the mooncakes are wrong. They are from a different part of China. Well, at least traditionally. Those appeared in the movie are usually called the Cantonese-style mooncake, which come from the southern part of China. The mooncakes local to the Jiangnan area are usually called the Suzhou-style mooncakes, look like this. Well, I know the Cantonese-style mooncake are more popular, also more accepted around the globe, so that's something I'm okay with. I also want to draw your attention to the dishes on the table. They look so real and so delicious, and they are also some of my favorite dishes. Of course, they are accurate as hell, also region correct. Like some of the dishes are only popular in this area and not other areas of China. So yeah, all of that is extraordinary. The next topic I want to talk about is Chang'e's costume. With the story set in modern times, her costumes are the only ones that have traditional influences. Now, I know almost nothing about costumes and traditional clothing, so I sent the screenshots to my friend who is Chinese, have lived abroad for a couple years, and is a costume maniac. I sent her the screenshots without telling her anything about this movie. No context, nothing about the production, and nothing about who designed these costumes. I showed her 3 costumes, the one in red, the one she wears when she meets Hou Yi, and the one when she was in the Chamber of Exquisite Sadness. And as it turns out, she has the most issue with the first one, the red one. She can immediately see that this is not a historically accurate costume, more of a fantasy design. The style itself is a mixture of Tang Dynasty and Han Dynasty, which are not from the same time period. But I can say they're probably the 2 most influential dynasties in Chinese history. The patterns, she said, are mostly correct. Like, you will not see the arrangement in a traditional Chinese costume, but they're definitely Chinese, like not Japanese or Korean, they're kind of correct. The design of the sleeve and the general T formation make her feel like it's still influenced by kimono, the traditional Japanese clothing. The massive collar, she said, is the most fantasy out of everything, and it might actually be influenced by the Elizabethan style. Those are just minor issues, especially when this is a fantasy piece, and the designer is allowed to have their personal style. In fact, she actually has the most issue with the choice of color. Yes, the red. The home costume makes her feel like it's trying very hard to convince people this is a Chinese costume. Almost trying too hard, honestly. Because red isn't really the traditional color for Chinese costumes. Almost every dynasty has their own color. And red isn't the color until like the last 1 or 2 dynasty. Even then, it's mostly shown through architecture, through arts, etc. A robe in this sort of red is in fact under the influence of recent couple years. One of the most famous example is the Xiuhefu, known as a traditional Chinese wedding dress. But it is actually a very modern invention, only got famous for like the last 20 years because of a movie. And under that influence, there's a misconception that Chinese traditional costumes are always look like this, red robes with golden patterns. Let's look at something different. For the 2020 Olympic Games, Japan made a kimono project where they designed one kimono for each country. And look at what they did for China. This kimono design is highly praised in China because it didn't go with a big red. They used the colors and elements correctly and elegantly. My friend has also said that if they decided to use black as the main color and maybe with golden patterns, she would love this costume much more. For the other two, she commented as not overly impressive, but they are basic and they got the job done, and there's no obvious issues. My friend is quite picky on these kind of things, so I would say that can count as a compliment. I also want to talk about Chang'e's legend. I have, in fact, heard 3 versions of it. The 2D animated sequence in the movie didn't really tell us why Chang'e took the magic pills. From Fei Fei's narration later, we can know that the version she believes is that there is a robbery and she has to hide the pills in her mouth. Her husband, Hou Yi, was a hero among men, and the pills are actually given by the gods to reward him of his heroic acts. There's also a second version hinted in this movie by one of the aunties when they were having dinners, and later on also by Qing. This is a version that my mom believes, is that the pills were supposed to grant you immortality, and one pill is already enough. Hou Yi locked these pills away from anyone, but Chang'e gets really greedy, and she not only stole them, but she ate all of them. That's why not only she became immortal, but also her body became lighter and lighter, and eventually she floats to the moon. I actually thought that was the direction this movie is gonna take, like a plot twist, she's actually kinda evil and only wants anything for herself. But no, it didn't go this way. It's a little wasted though, to have this version hinted and then never explore it, or explain to the audience what the other version is. And there's another version that I heard but never explained in the movie, is that even though Hou Yi was a hero, he became violent and abusive after the marriage. And he told Chang'e that magical pills are actually poisons. Because her husband mistreats her and is never home anymore, Chang'e became depressive and decided to end her life. So she ate all the pills. The magical pills in this version function the same way as the second version. So instead of dying, she became lighter and lighter and eventually flew to the moon. That last version has nothing to do with the movie. I just want to tell you for the entertainment. Some other parts that left out of the movie is that on the moon, there's not only the jade rabbit, there's also a man named Wukong and a massive laurel tree. The man was punished to be there to axe down that tree, but the tree always grows back, so the punishment never ends. And that's a cruel punishment, isn't it? And at last, before I finish, here are some smaller things I picked up during the film. The water bottle for the warm water is a must for every Chinese family. During Fei Fei's class, what's written on the blackboard is one of the most famous poems related to the moon. Once again, in Fei Fei's classroom on the wall, her name was listed as best student with the most amount of stars. The instant noodle gave me a laugh, but there's no way my parents would allow me to eat instant noodles at 12. Also, pets near the food? Never. Even when you are the cutest rabbit in the world. Qin is not actually a Chinese pronunciation. According to the subtitle, it should be pronounced Qin, spelled as Qin instead of Chin. The crabs are a big thing in this region of China. I watched this film with my mom and she's a big crab lover, and she commented that those crabs looked kind of small in Grandpa's hand. She almost sounded disappointed. According to my mom, the pose that Chang'e has for her photo op is to match those images on those old-fashioned mooncake box from when she was younger. Notice the bow and arrows on Hou Yi's back? That was reference to another legend. Remember when I said Hou Yi was a hero? Basically one day there are 10 suns in the sky, and the earth became incredibly hot. So Hou Yi shot down 9 of them and saved everyone on the earth. The necklace that Mrs. Zhong wears also looks like 2 pieces of jade coming together. And once again, the dishes on the table. Should I do a video explaining what each of them are? Anyway, thank you so much for watching my review video on Over the Moon. I am overjoyed to have this kind of representation after the Mulan mess. Tell me what you think, and if you have any question regarding the culture aspect, you can leave a comment below. Please also consider like or subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye!